Dysthanasia, an obscure sequel to an already obscure sequel to an equally obscure game, Demonophobia. Made by the ever so infamous and elusive developer 237, known today on social media and internet platforms as Madowaku or Window Frame if you translate it to English, Dysthanasia is the third installment of indie Japanese horror games that are a little more special and horrific than your average horror game. Dating back to his first work of Demonophobia in 2008, a whole 17 years ago, followed by the sequel Xenophobia, which was never completed by Madowaku thanks to the sheer controversy of his games. And trust me, I've played a lot of horror games and obscure content. His games are not for the faint of heart. However, after seemingly disappearing from the world and all platforms, almost like for a decade, in the December of 2021, he reappeared, donning the name of Window Frame over his old alias of 237, and brought with him his third game. While retaining the same themes as his two previous games, this one, however, was not a 2D side-scroller game, which were, I'm not gonna lie, they were kind of poorly developed, some didn't even have audio, but this one was a full third-person, over-the-shoulder Unreal Engine experience. Completely unprecedented. I personally have not played the first two games thanks to their subpar production quality and nature, but Dysthanasia truly captivated me, and even the demo version, which I have a full playthrough on my channel, was enough to instill a need for a fully released version. Development continued for years into 2024, and a promise of a full game was close. Updates from developer Madowaku himself were frequent. However, starting in mid-2024, there was a lack of communication and updates, mirroring what happened to his previous two games, and on the fateful August of 2024, Madowaku himself posted this, and history seemingly would repeat itself, as Dysthanasia would be destined to follow in the footsteps of its two predecessors, to be unfinished lost media that would be kept on life support by loyal and avid fans. I myself was holding on to some hope that he would not disappear like he did again, but the months passed and it would seem that all is lost. But that is until I woke up one day and saw a tweet from Madowaku himself on his Twitter. Oh wait, no, it's not Twitter anymore. Right. God damn it. Sorry, X platform on his account, and boy, I could not believe my eyes. No way, I thought. Not only was the development and release of Dysthanasia back on track after its supposed ban on DLSite, which is surprising to me at least, considering DLSite itself allows some absolutely unhinged and controversial games, Dysthanasia seems like it would fit right in if you ask me. But if we look closely, what's this? A Steam release? Now this, I'm sure myself or no one else saw coming. It's almost like a fever dream. I don't even believe that it's happening, to be honest. With a publisher in sights and also the fact that a Riona type game like Dysthanasia showed up in a convention? Bro, I mean, Japan was always crazy, but I didn't know they were this crazy. I mean, that's good for us, but honestly, I'm kind of concerned for the world right now, but what a time to be alive, eh? Did I also mention that it's compatible with a Steam Deck of all things? We will be able to play this thing on the go. That's just unbelievable. That's really good news if you ask me, and also kind of funny. Imagine playing Dysthanasia or any one of Madowaku's games on a Steam Deck, on a train in public. That's just surreal. But yeah, all said and done, this is definitely great news for the fans of Dysthanasia and the genre alike. But as a member of the community, I do have my concerns about the game, and the Reddit community of Dysthanasia who also seem to share the same concerns. Side note, shout out to this random fan who thinks I was about to become like the messiah of Dysthanasia. Sorry I nearly gave up on the series, buddy. It was dark times. But definitely I will try to be the messenger that everyone deserves, and hence the making of this video. But back on track, the big question. Will the publicity and bringing into the light of Dysthanasia muddle its quality and originality? Now, this is something that I have great concern on. Looking back into the history of Riona horror games, they have always been a tricky topic since its origins, further alienated by the differences in modern Japanese culture to the rest of the world. A common theme with these games is that we usually play as a young girl or lolly type character, and that alone causes mass scrutiny and assumptions given the nature of the horrifying things our protagonist usually has to go through. And while it's easy to stereotype and point fingers, I like to shed some insight on this as I would say, I don't know, a hybrid between a member of the Ryona horror community and like other games. I kind of play everything if you look at my channel. But anyways, if Dysthanasia were to go mainstream and into the hands of many players, streamers, content creators, and maybe even public figures, who knows, although not encompassing all Ryona horror games as a stereotype, while Dysthanasia at a glance may seem like an arrow or ecchi focused game, I implore you to look deeper past the surface of the game, and I promise you, even in the demo, you will find elements such as its story, its themes, and even sub-themes that go way beyond the premise of being an arrow game. Take for example the unique designs of the monsters that imply very real-world trauma as long as you have two brain cells to rub together that a young girl may experience, or even the name of the game, Dysthanasia, a medical term for a forced state between life and death, the fact of not being fully alive. I think that's an amazing premise. And not to mention that the fact that the game takes place in a hospital or even a morgue, I think the more I think about it, holds so much more to uncover in terms of its lore and its ideology and the message it's trying to convey. And finally, but not least, the vulnerability of playing as quite literally a child. It has the power to elevate horror to the next level, as the helplessness and vulnerabilities really do make scary encounters all the more terrifying. I've played a lot of other horror games, and what other horror game does this? In any other mainstream game, we would often as not play as some random dude, or a dude suffering from mental illnesses. And sometimes you are even given the ability to fight the monsters or horrors, which is, I mean, not to say a bad thing, it really depends on how the execution is done, but rarely do I ever feel as helpless as I do in Dysthanasia. Sure, other horror games have female leads, such as the revered Silent Hill 3, we have Cheryl or Heather Mason, but then again, we have a shotgun, come on guys. But in Dysthanasia, the feeling of despair and impending doom really makes it unique. And honestly, it's an experience I think for those who can bear to stomach it is something you should give a shot. Definitely not for everyone, but I don't think games should be made to appeal to the masses. I think different strokes for different folks is definitely something I believe in. Niche content will have its uses, and definitely we shouldn't try to muddle everything into one bland template. I'm looking at UEA. Yeah. I really hope that Dysthanasia does not compromise on those aspects should it decide to go mainstream, as it would mean a lot and a lot of censorship, or at least have an external patch that we can use as hardcore fans on our own, like many other games on Steam already do. It's pretty much a common practice, I think. And thank you if you made it to this point of the video. I think that is all I wanted to share, sort of as a precursor of what's to come. The future of this game is and always has been shaky, but I have full faith in the developers and the community, and I hope that the hard work of the developer and said community does not go to waste or get shunned by the oversensitive masses of today's time. Or, this all could be for nothing and I really could be stupid. But that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.